Good evening. Tonight marks a turning point in American history. The Supreme Court has struck down the legal foundation of the Trump-era tariffs, sending shockwaves through global commerce. For years, these tariffs fueled economic friction, impacting everyone from farmers to factory workers and consumers nationwide. What began as a promise to protect American jobs escalated into a trade war, straining alliances and raising costs for all. Now, that era has ended. The court's decision dismantles a core pillar of the America First policy, forcing a global recalibration. This isn't just about economics, it's about the balance of power in our government. The justices have reasserted Congress's role in international trade, setting a precedent that will shape presidencies for generations. The path ahead is uncertain. Dismantling tariffs will require negotiation and rebuilding trust with global partners. Industries must adapt to new competition, and consumers may see prices fall. Tonight, we'll break down the origins, the legal battle, and what this means for your wallet, the country, and the world. The game has changed. Let's dive in. To grasp today's ruling, we must revisit the origins of the tariffs. Trump's tariffs aim to counter what he called unfair trade practices, especially by China, using Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962. This law let the president impose tariffs for national security, but the Trump administration broadened security to include economic threats, even from allies. Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974 was also used to target China for intellectual property theft. The result? Escalating tariffs on hundreds of billions in goods, sparking a trade war. Supporters saw this as defending American workers. Critics warned of higher prices and global backlash. Farmers, tech companies, and consumer groups pushed back, fearing retaliation and rising costs. The nation was divided, and the world braced for conflict. These legal and political battles set the stage for the Supreme Court's intervention. The stakes were never just economic, they were constitutional. And tonight, that question has been answered. The world's response to U.S. tariffs was swift and fierce. Allies like Canada and Germany condemned the moves, calling them illegal and damaging to alliances. Retaliation followed. The EU targeted American icons like Harley-Davidson and bourbon, while China hit U.S. agriculture hard, devastating farmers. The World Trade Organization was flooded with disputes, and the U.S. found itself increasingly isolated. Businesses scrambled to adapt, shifting supply chains to countries like Vietnam and Malaysia. The era of stable global trade gave way to uncertainty and economic nationalism. Companies faced higher costs, disrupted plans, and a new reality of geopolitical risk. The tariffs didn't just spark a trade war, they upended the global order. The world was watching, and the consequences were profound. The legal fight at home was just beginning. The international backlash made clear. America's choices reverberate worldwide. The pressure for change was mounting. The fight against tariffs moved from global headlines to U.S. courtrooms. Businesses and industry groups sued, arguing the president had overstepped constitutional bounds. They claimed only Congress can regulate commerce and levy taxes, not the executive branch acting alone. Lower courts hesitated to intervene, citing presidential authority and national security. But persistent plaintiffs sharpened their focus. This was about the separation of powers. The Supreme Court agreed to hear the case, consolidating challenges from companies harmed by the tariffs. At stake, whether Congress had unconstitutionally delegated its power to the president. The case, American Institute for International Steel vs. United States, set the stage for today's historic ruling. The legal battle was about more than trade. It was about the very structure of American government. And now, the highest court has spoken. On September 23, 2025, the Supreme Court delivered a decision that will echo for generations. In a 7-2 majority, the court ruled that using Section 232 to justify sweeping tariffs was an unconstitutional overreach of executive power. Chief Justice Roberts' opinion defended the separation of powers, invalidating the legal basis for the steel and aluminum tariffs. The court invoked the non-delegation doctrine. Congress cannot hand its legislative powers to the executive without clear guidelines. The term national security had become a blank check for tariffs, something the Constitution forbids. Roberts wrote, "The power to lay and collect taxes is among Congress's most significant and carefully guarded powers." The dissent argued for executive flexibility, but the majority insisted economic policymaking belongs to Congress. This ruling reasserts congressional authority and sets a powerful precedent for future trade policy. The message is clear. The president cannot unilaterally rewrite economic law. The balance of power has shifted. This ruling wasn't about the wisdom of tariffs. It was about the foundation of American democracy. The key question: did Congress give away too much power to the president in Section 232? The court said yes, drawing a line. Congress can delegate, but only with clear, specific limits. National security had become so vague it let the executive branch create new tax laws, something only Congress should do. The decision revives the non-delegation doctrine, signaling the court will scrutinize broad grants of power to the executive. This could affect not just trade, but environmental and financial regulations as well. The ruling also casts doubt on other trade authorities like Section 301, hinting at more legal challenges ahead. The court has recalibrated the balance of power, pulling authority back to Capitol Hill. The implications reach far beyond tariffs. The economic impact will be immediate and complex. Consumers may see lower prices as tariffs vanish, easing the cost of living. Companies relying on imports will benefit, but protected industries like steel face tough competition. Political leaders in industrial states are already calling for new support to cushion the blow. The administration must now unwind the tariffs and manage the fallout. Congress faces tough choices. If tariffs are to return, they must be debated and passed in the open. The era of executive trade wars is over. Globally, allies welcome a return to predictable rules-based trade. But challenges with China and other competitors remain, now to be tackled through negotiation, not unilateral tariffs. The world is watching America's next move. Experts agree, this is a watershed moment. Dr. Evelyn Reed, trade economist, says removing tariffs will boost efficiency, but warns of painful adjustments for protected industries. Professor David Chen, constitutional law scholar, calls the ruling a long overdue correction. Expect more legal challenges to executive power. Former Ambassador James Stratford sees diplomatic opportunity. The U.S. can now lead with alliances, not threats. The world is awake to trade issues, but the approach must shift from confrontation to cooperation. Maria Flores, a Midwest manufacturer, says the end of tariff uncertainty brings relief but also new competition. Business leaders echo her. Stability is welcome, but agility and innovation are now essential. The consensus: the post-tariff era will reward those who adapt quickly. The legal, economic, and diplomatic landscapes have all changed. America's role in global trade is being redefined. The challenge is to seize this moment for smarter, fairer policy. The world is watching how we lead. The future is up for grabs. Where do we go from here? The Supreme Court's decision doesn't reset the world. It demands a new approach. The global economy has changed. Supply chains are different. Skepticism about trade runs deep. The White House must rebuild trust with allies and negotiate new trade deals. Congress now leads on trade policy, facing tough debates about open markets versus targeted protections. For Americans, expect changes in prices and a new conversation about the future of our economy. The real challenge: addressing the decline of manufacturing, supply chain vulnerabilities, and communities left behind by globalization. The end of tariffs is just the beginning. We need thoughtful, effective policies to support workers and foster innovation without reigniting trade wars. Tonight, an era of executive-driven conflict ends. A new chapter begins. The stakes are high and the questions are complex. We'll keep following every development. Now we want to hear from you. How has the tariff era affected your community? Join the conversation.